It's late. Unless you're in Europe, in which case it's early. Good morning. Now, that being said, we have 12 games on, and in 9 hours, Florida and Boston get started. And of course, there will be a live stream during tomorrow evening's games. So, hope you can show up for that. And I gave a couple of days warning because why not? And it used to be that I gave like warning of maybe a day, and I figured, I'll do this. Well, just give her a little test drive, see how it goes. Because I haven't done it in a while, and I know that it's been a feature that's been missing from this channel, and there are people that do miss the public live streams. So, let's go for it now. Florida and Boston. So Florida in the month of March is 6-7-2. In the month of March, Boston's 9-4. Overall, Florida sits in 21st place, not making the playoffs. Boston sits at number 2 overall. On the road, Florida's 15-19-6. At home, Boston's 29-7-3. Now, I looked up the odds of which team was going to win the Stanley Cup tonight. I thought, do a Vegas odds. So I used Gambler.com's, where it's got a list of all these, how it would pay out. And they have, Boston at number 3. Florida, gone. And after tonight's results, I had to take Vancouver off the board too because they are officially eliminated from the playoffs. So Boston are number 3 on the cup odds. Not bad. Your goals leader for Florida is Hoffman with 35. Assist leader is Huberdeau with 59. Plus minus leader is Hunt with a +1. Dryden Hunt's played pretty well, actually. Penalty minutes leader is Weegar with 62. Power play goals, Hoffman leads there with 17. He also leads in game-winning goals with 6. Shots leader is Hoffman with 240. So Hoffman's had a very good year with Florida. We'll see what happens with him this summer. He's one of those guys who's been rumored that if they go after Panarin, maybe Hoffman would be the odd man out. On the Boston side of things, Pastrnak leads the team in goals with 36, remarkable considering the amount of time he missed. Marchand leads in assists with 63 and in points with 97. Yeah, Brad Marchand has an excellent chance at 100 points this year. Didn't see that one coming, did you? On the plus-minus side of things, Bergeron plus 26, so he is making another push for a Selke. Penalty minutes leaders Marchand with 94. Power play goals Pastrnak with 17. Game-winning goals Marchand leads there with 8. And your shots leader again, Marchand with 220. Having an excellent season. We're not really discussing who might potentially win a Hart Trophy for Boston this year because I've already done that video with Marchand twice. And I don't see him as a Hart candidate for Boston this year. I think there's been a number of guys who've come up at different times to allow them to get to the record they have. Rask has been confirmed as the starter for tomorrow because it's Florida. And because I think they're going to go with him as the starter in the playoffs. I really don't know. I would imagine. But I think he'll have a short leash because Halak's played pretty well. Boston's won 2 out of 3 meetings between them and Florida this year. I'd like to see it be 3 out of 4, but we'll see. And on Florida's side, they're playing out the string. I mean, their March record at 6-7-2, not great, not horrible, considering where they're at, and they haven't had a lot to play for in a long time, so they're not really bottoming out. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do come off-season, draft, free agency, and all these wonderful things, since there's all kinds of rumors of what they might do in free agency, and we'll see. Next up, Dallas and Vancouver. So as of tonight's result, this doesn't really mean much for Vancouver, and yet it feels like it does. Quinn Hughes has joined the team, and there's this whole new air about the Canucks when you look at social media, when you just look at sports in general and the way they're reporting on the Canucks. All of a sudden, hey, look, the Canucks have a good young nucleus, and things look bright for the future. Absolutely. You do need to surround that nucleus with good players, however. On the Dallas side of things, they're 9-4-1 in March. Vancouver's 6-6-1. On the overall standings, Dallas is number 16. Vancouver's number 24. On the road, Dallas is now 19-17-3. Going to have a little bit of an attitude with that over 500 record on the road. Don't let it go to your heads. At home, Vancouver's 18-16-5. So Vancouver at home, not a great record, but not bad considering the year they've had. And Dallas, pretty good. If anybody's noticed, there is a cat tree now in the background. With the stuff that's been moved around tonight, the cat tree will, in some videos, be in the background. And once in a while, there'll be a cat on it. Right now, there just isn't. It's one of those rare times there's no cat on the cat tree. Cup odds, Dallas is 14th. So they're number 14 overall in Cup odds, and that sounds about right to me. Before the Stanley Cup playoffs, I'll go ahead and give my 1 through 16 and who I think is most likely to win the Stanley Cup. Goals leader, Tyler Seguin for Dallas with 31. He also leads them in assists with 44, points with 75. But your plus-minus leader is Radulov with a plus 21. Penalty minutes leader is Roman Polak with 67. Power play goals, Ben and Seguin both have 8. Seguin leads in game-winning goals with 7, and in shots with 317. So Tyler Seguin leads the team in a lot of categories. On the Vancouver side, Pettersson and Horvat both have 27. That's right. I said Peterson. Gotta say it, right? So they both have 27 goals. Your assist leader is Pettersson with 37. He also leads in points, of course, with 65. Plus-minus leader is Troy Stecher with a plus 12. Really good season for him. I know offensively maybe not exactly where you might want it to be, but he's had a very good season. Penalty minutes leader is still Roussel. He's going to be the leader until the end of the year, even though he's no longer playing. 118 for him. I think he had a decent debut season with Vancouver. We'll see what happens with him this summer and going into next year. Power play goals, Pettersson leads there with 9. Game-winning goals, he leads with 7. Still the rookie. And shots leader is Bo Horvat with 221. Horvat quietly has had an excellent season as well. So it really has been a good year, and I know people point at Brock Besser and they go, hey, he's had a setback year. Don't be surprised when there's a video about Besser after this season where I point out that he hasn't had any kind of a drawback this year. It's just people expected more out of him than what he gave, but I don't think this year was a bad year by his standard at all. No confirmation on goaltenders. I'm not really getting into that with tomorrow's preview so much. I'm kind of pacing myself on that stuff. Playoffs are coming soon here. Both teams have won a game in this matchup between the two teams, and tomorrow's the rubber match. Yes, I want Dallas to win. I want Dallas to go to the playoffs, and right now they're on the verge of clinching. I'd like to see them clinch a playoff spot and not have to worry about it. Vancouver is out of the playoffs. I have no problem saying if Dallas could win this one in overtime, win 3-2 in overtime. Quinn Hughes gets a point. Pettersson gets a point. Besser, Horvat, everybody gets a point. Thatcher Demko starts the game, makes 40 saves, but Dallas gets the win in overtime. That would be nice. Probably not going to happen though. Next up, Buffalo. A miserable season for Buffalo. Miserable month for Buffalo. Yeah. In March, they're 2-10-2. It's awful. The Islanders, on the other hand, are 8-7 in March. It's been a really up and down month for them, and they're coming off of that win against Winnipeg. Now they're up against Buffalo. Avoid the dreaded trap game. Overall, Buffalo stands at number 27 in the NHL. That's pretty bad. That's right about where I had them in my preview. And I don't say that to be mean. I say it because a month into the season, a lot of people were going to that season preview of Buffalo and going, this didn't age well. You should take this down. This didn't age well. This just, you're wrong. Are you going to do a video on how wrong you were? And here they are. Number 6 overall is Islanders. I was very wrong about the Islanders, and I didn't see Islander fans saying a whole. It's weird. I didn't. I'm just saying I didn't. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I didn't see Islander fans, because I think Islander fans were surprised too. On the road, Buffalo is 11-23-5. Yeah, it's been a long losing streak for them on the road. 13 games, I believe. Ouch. At home, the Islanders are an impressive 23-12-4. So may not be betting on a win tomorrow night for Buffalo. Now, if you're betting on the Stanley Cup and you want a long shot that might have a chance, the Islanders are number 12 right now. They are number 12 in Stanley Cup odds. Goals leader for Buffalo is Skinner with 37. He got most of those first half of the season. Assist leaders, Eichel with 49. He also leads the team in points with 76. Pretty good year for Eichel in general, and we haven't really talked about it very much because there's a lot of players getting a lot of points, and Eichel kind of gets buried in the conversation. Plus-minus leader is Skinner with -2. Penalty minutes leader is Bogosian with 52. Power play goals, Skinner and Eichel both have 8. Game-winning goals, Skinner with 7. Shots, Eichel with 284. On the New York side of things, Anders Lee with 28 goals. Assist leaders, Barzal with 43. Points leader, Barzal with 61. Plus-minus leaders, Cizikas and Lee are both at a +20. Penalty minutes, Mayfield leads there with 68. Power play goals, Lee is there with 10. Game-winning goals, Eberle and Lee are tied for the lead there, and I think it's with 4. I think they've got 4. Anyways, Lee leads the team in shots with 200, and both teams have won a game in between these two. I don't anticipate a Buffalo win here, and I'm going to be interested to see how things turn around for Buffalo. Is Phil Housley's job in trouble? Does the month of March mean that there needs to be a change behind the bench, or is this just everything's a disaster, and after the trade deadline you can expect this kind of a nosedive? It'll be interesting to see what Jason Botterill does. He does have some decisions to make. And on the Islanders side, everything's been pretty solid all year. A win tomorrow night, I believe, clinches a playoff spot for the Islanders, and at 6th overall, it really shouldn't take that long. Next up, okay, Montreal. The Habs, they're also looking at the playoffs and their place in them. They're 7-6-1 in the month of March, so not a hugely successful month, but not a horrible one. On the Winnipeg side, they're 8-6 in March. So the Winnipeg Jets, there are some cracks there heading into playoff time, and yet they sit first in their division. Overall standings, Montreal stands at number 14, Winnipeg stands at number 9. On the road, Montreal's 18-17-4. At home, Winnipeg is 25-11-4. And so, for Winnipeg, they get to finish the season with some on the road, and we'll see how that affects their standing if Nashville can actually take the division, and if maybe St. Louis can jump in there. If Winnipeg actually, had problems down the stretch and ended up finishing in 3rd, what might that do to them going into the playoffs? They wouldn't be considered favorites at that stage either. Cup odds right now, the Montreal Canadiens are tied for 15th. Winnipeg's in, I think it's a 4-way tie for 4th. So Winnipeg is considered a favorite still by Vegas odds makers. Goals leaders, Gallagher, 33 for Montreal. Assist leader is Domi with 42. He also leads the team in points with 69. Plus minus leaders, Tatar with a plus 22. Your penalty minutes leader is Domi with 80. Power play goals, you got 4 players with 4. Game-winning goals, Tatar and Gallagher both have 4. Shots leader is Gallagher with 289. No confirmation on goalies, it's Carey Price. Spoiler alert, it's Carey Price. Goals leader for the Winnipeg Jets, Scheifele with 36. Assist leader is Wheeler with 69. He also leads the team in points with 89. So 20 goals for him. Plus minus leader is Andrew Kopp with a plus 18. Penalty minutes, Tyler Myers leads there with 61. Power play goals, Laine still leads the team in power play goals with 15. And then game-winning goals, Scheifele leads with 6. Shots, Laine leads there as well with 235. So we'll see how much Laine gets this summer. We'll see how Laine performs from here. I noticed that he was getting some time towards the end of the game the other night where his shots, he takes these wild shots that they look like they barely missed the mark, but they still miss the mark. So he is still having his struggles. And I think if Laine can get going as we hit this last week, and if he can get his game going into the playoffs, if Laine could come up with some big games in the playoffs, Winnipeg shouldn't have a problem, at least in round 1. And a lot of the time with the playoffs, it's which team is the least beat up. Which team's the least beat up that gets to move on to the next round. If you want to consider that to be just sort of a chance thing, you can. But there's a strategy to it. So Winnipeg, a team that can wear other teams down, if they're firing on all cylinders and they're playing that kind of game, it could be really difficult to take them out. Next up, Philly. Oh, Montreal's won the only matchup with Winnipeg this year. Now, Philly, in against Carolina. Carolina, decent chance of making the playoffs, though if Montreal wins and Columbus wins and Carolina loses tomorrow night, this could get really tough quickly. In the month of March, Philly's now 7-6, so their hot streak's been over for a bit here. Whereas Carolina's 8-5-1 in the month of March. March has not been, I don't know. It's been good, and yet with Carolina, I just get this sudden feeling that maybe the playoffs aren't as certain. There will not be a surge should they win tomorrow night. And then the question becomes one of, did they jinx themselves by taking the surge away? That'll be the conversation. Overall standings, Philly sits at number 18, whereas Carolina sits at number 11. On the road, Philadelphia is 18-16-4. At home, Carolina is 22-16-2. Stanley Cup odds. Philadelphia is still alive. They sit 21st in Stanley Cup odds. You make a ton of money if Philly wins the Stanley Cup because they're not going to the playoffs. Carolina sits at 13th. So again, if you want a value bet for the Stanley Cup, Carolina might be a good choice. Goals leaders for Philadelphia, it's Couturier, 32. Assist leader is Giroux with 60. He also leads the team in points with 80. Plus minus leaders also Giroux with plus 14. Penalty minutes leaders Haig with 61. Power play goals, James Van Riemsdyk leads there with 8. Game-winning goals leader is Couturier with 5. Shots leader is Giroux with 220. Claude Giroux having another quiet, solid season. On the Carolina side of things, Sebastian Aho, 30 goals to lead them. Assists, he also leads them in assists. He's tied with Teravainen at 51. Points leader then is Aho with 81 points. Pesce leads the team in plus minus with a plus 32. Your penalty minutes leader is Ferland, and Svechnikov tied with 58. Power play goals, Williams leads there with 9. Game-winning goals is Aho with 7. And your shots leader is Dougie Hamilton with 243. Carolina's won both meetings this year, and oddly, according to Daily Faceoff, Cam Talbot is starting in this game. I remarked when Carter Hart started the last game, where's Cam Talbot? And now here's Cam Talbot. So are they auditioning who's going to be the two goalies next year? Like Carter Hart's clearly going to be the starter. Are they auditioning for backup between Talbot and Elliott? What's going on? Because, Talbot can walk this summer. So it's just strange for me carrying 3 goaltenders. It's always going to kind of break my brain a little bit. But Carolina's won both meetings. We'll see if throwing Talbot in maybe throws a wrench into that. Maybe Talbot has a good record against Carolina above and beyond that of Elliott or Carter Hart early in his career. And I would expect for Carolina that we will see Mrazek. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't Mrazek for Carolina. So, moving along. Vegas. So Vegas is one of those teams that I'm looking at right now, and I'm like, where is Vegas at? And the problem is that this question really is reliant on another question, which is, when is Marc-Andre Fleury coming back? So we can look at them struggling lately, and we can say, well, Vegas is kind of struggling, but they're also not quite getting the goaltending that they were when Fleury was in net. And that's just reality. Now, if they're going with Subban tomorrow night, that could be a problem. If Fleury is not back and they go with Lagacé, well, we'll see how things turn out with that. They're 8-4-1 in the month of March, so it's not all doom and gloom. San Jose's 6-6-1 in the month of March, and San Jose, it's been a lot of doom and gloom. So this may very well be a preview of the first round. For Vegas, they're 5 points back of San Jose. If they can win in San Jose and make that a 3-point deficit and send San Jose to another loss, another consecutive loss, Vegas does still have a chance at catching them, because at this point, there is something psychologically going on with San Jose. This isn't just a Martin Jones thing at this point. There's something psychologically with San Jose as well. Overall, Vegas sits 15th in the NHL. San Jose sits number 7. This is kind of why when people say, oh, the league's rigged for Vegas, they're 15th overall. It's a horrible job rigging it if they're 15th out of 31 teams. Anyhow, on the road, Vegas is now 19-19-1. At home, San Jose's 23-10-5. But that home record is getting worse. And they need a win at home badly. Maybe Vegas coming in will be that magic elixir. Stanley Cup odds, both teams are tied at number 4 on the Stanley Cup odds list on Gambler.com. So, yeah, and I didn't get paid for that. I'm just saying where I get them from, because anytime that I use these kinds of numbers or I talk about projected goalies, people are like, where did you get that? So I have to say it so that people don't think I'm just making stuff up. When I'm making stuff up, I say it. Goals leader for Vegas is Marchessault with 24. Assist leader Smith with 33. Your points leader is Marchessault with 56. I said this in today's preview. I'll say it again. They're low totals, but lately these guys have been much better. Plus minus leader is Nate Schmidt with a plus 21. Penalty minutes leader is Ryan Reeves with 62. Power play goals, Marchessault leads there with 16. Game-winning goals is Tuck with 6. Shots leaders, Marchessault with 269. So Marchessault's shooting a ton. On the San Jose side of things, their goals leader is Pavelski with 37. They miss him. That is making a difference. Assist leaders, Burns with 65. He also leads the team in points with 78. He's having an excellent season. Somehow still flying a little bit under the radar. Plus minus leader is Brendan Dillon with a plus 18. Evander Kane leads the team in penalty miss with 151. Hurdle and Pavelski have 11 power play goals to lead the team. Game-winning goals, Pavelski with 6. Shots leader is Brent Burns with 285. Vegas has won 2 out of 3 meetings this year. And, of course, famously last season, Vegas won the series against San Jose. So if they meet again, it's a chance for San Jose to enact a little bit of revenge and maybe prevent Vegas fans from singing Baby Shark just a little too much. Because that was something that went down last year. And, yeah. I know there was still some Baby Shark stuff that... Anyways, that's a whole other thing. This rivalry, though, I think this is going to be Vegas's big rival coming out of year 2. They're going to meet in the playoffs again, and meeting in the playoffs 2 years in a row usually leads to a huge rivalry. That being said, I now have to change sports. After what had to be a very emotional victory for Columbus the other night against Montreal, they now go into Nashville. Nashville's coming out of an emotional victory over Pittsburgh. This should be very interesting because both of these teams need this game. Nashville wants to finish first in their division and avoid St. Louis in round 1. Columbus really wants to just make the playoffs. They went all in at the deadline. They really need to make the playoffs. In the month of March, Columbus is now 7-6-1. So they've turned it around at home, but on the road they've had some struggles. And now they're in against Nashville, who are 7-4-1 in the month of March, and they're pretty darn solid at home. Overall, these teams are very close. Columbus is number 12 overall. Nashville's number 10. On the road, Columbus is 21-14-2. Excellent numbers still. At home, Nashville's an impressive 23-13-2. And Nashville, at one point this season, carried an undefeated record against the East. It went for quite a while before that kind of fell apart when they kind of fell apart. That being said, they're again starting to play like we expected at the start of the year. Stanley Cup odds, a tie for 15th. That's where Columbus finds themselves right now, whereas Nashville finds themselves 8th. So that's a good value bet too. And again, there's so many teams that they could. Nashville's in one of those. They could. They have the pieces. They have the goaltender. They have the defense, and they have some pretty decent snipers as well, and a good team that's well coached. So yeah, they could. If we look at leaders in scoring for the Columbus Blue Jackets, Atkinson has 39 goals to lead there. He also has 50. No, that's Panarin has 52 assists. Sorry, that should say Panarin. I know it says Atkinson, and I apologize. Panarin also leads them in points with 79. So I know that Atkinson doesn't have 39 goals and 52 assists. He wishes he did, and I'm sure if he was watching these videos, he'd go, I have 91 points. I'm awesome. But sorry, Cam, if you see this, I apologize. Plus minus leader is Anderson with a plus 23. Atkinson has 8 power play goals to lead the team there. Game-winning goals, Panarin and Atkinson with 8. I will say this. If you subscribe to the Entertainment Guy, you can totally see that while I was writing this part of the board, I was talking about a dumb movie I watched tonight while I was doing the boards. So that's, I will use that as well as an excuse for why Atkinson leads the team in assists and he doesn't. Penalty menace leader is down here. That's Dubois. I remembered while I was talking to the camera, and I included it at the bottom on this one. Shots leaders Atkinson with 273. So Cam Atkinson's having an excellent season, justifying every cent they pay for him. On the Nashville side of things, Arvidsson has 32 goals. It's now 33, isn't it? It's 32? Anyways, he is having an amazing season for a guy who... No, he has 32 goals, 13 assists. For a guy who's missed as much time as he has, he would have had a shot at 50 if he'd been healthy all year. Assist leaders, Johansson with 50. Points leaders, also Johansson with 62. Plus minus leader is Nick Bonino with a plus 28. You could win some trivia contests with that one because nobody's going to pick Bonino. Penalty minutes leaders PK Subban with 56. Power play goals, Forsberg leads with 7. Game-winning goals is Arvidsson with 6. Yossi leads the team in shots with 266. And Columbus won the only meeting between these teams this year. So this is the second meeting. This one's in Nashville. So Nashville's going to expect to win it. but we'll see because there's a lot to play for both these teams. This could be a really fun game. Next up, Toronto and Ottawa. This was a fun game the last time they met, wasn't it? If like, and it's funny because it's just the game was so unpredictable, and Ottawa came out and kind of like was okay. Well, we can beat the Leafs, and just the panic that set in after. So I expect. I'm going to tell you guys right now. I expect Toronto to come out tomorrow and whoop Ottawa. I expect an absolute slaughter by the Toronto Maple Leafs against the Ottawa Senators. And they need that kind of game. They're 6-4-3 in the month of March. That's not good enough. The Ottawa Senators are 5-7-1 in the month of March, which Joe Sakic will tell you that's not quite bad enough. He wants to see it worse than that, but they're going to finish 31st. They'll have the number one odds in the lottery, which doesn't belong to them. Standings overall, the Toronto Maple Leafs are number 5 in the NHL, and of course, as mentioned, Ottawa's number 31. They're not going above 31. It's not going to happen. On the road, Toronto's 22-11-5 at home. Ottawa's 17-17-4. Stanley Cup odds. Toronto's tied at 9th. That seems low. It does. You would think that the odds would be higher for Toronto. And I understand people are going to say, well, they have to go through Boston, they have to go through Tampa, so their odds are low. But still, they're better than some of these other teams that seem to have better odds. Of all the odds that I have on the board, I would be tempted to take Toronto. I would. I really would. I know what I'm saying, but I would be tempted just for the amount of money you'd make if you put down 100. Yeah. Anyhow, goals leader for Toronto is Tavares at 45. Assists for Marner, 65. Points, Marner at 90. Give that man $12 million. Marchand has been very vocal about that. Plus minus leader is Hainsey at plus 30. Penalty minutes leader is Hyman at 65. Power play goals, Matthews leads there with 11. Tavares leads in game-winning goals with 7. And shots, Tavares leads there with 268. Tavares is kind of quietly having an excellent season. And quietly, I mean, we talk a lot about him leaving the Islanders. We talk about him wearing his blankets, his Toronto Maple Leafs blankets as a little kid. They have the commercial of him on his dad's lap when he's a kid watching Leafs. And we don't talk much about the season he's having and how he's actually playing. It's weird. Okay, leaders on the Ottawa side. Brady Tkachuk has 20 goals. Shabbat has 40 assists. Shabbat leads the team in points with 53. DeMello has a plus 4 to lead the team's plus minus. Penalty minutes, Borowiecki has 89 to lead the team there. Power play goals, Ryan has 6. Game-winning goals is Tkachuk with 3. Shots leader is Tkachuk with 203. Because they traded away the players who would have led in all those categories. So again, I kind of expect Toronto to come out and win this, but Ottawa's won 2 out of 3 meetings. Ottawa's done pretty well against Toronto. It's a matchup that for whatever reason has started going Ottawa's way. Even though 20 years ago, it never went Ottawa's way when they met Toronto. That just wasn't a thing. Next up, Washington and Tampa. This is a matchup that's favored Tampa a couple of times already. And you can kind of feel when these teams play each other that Tampa is seeing this team as the one that they have to get past. So even though they have to go past, Boston in the second round, if that's how it turns out, or Toronto, first round is not always a gimme if you're the President's Trophy winner. Went through that today. Jinx is overrated. Because if you look at the position where teams have won the Stanley Cup from, so since the President's Trophy was brought in, and you look at just the 16 positions that teams are in at the start of the playoffs, if you finish first in the league, you still have a pretty good chance of winning, comparatively speaking, with other teams that are seated lower. Anyhow, that being said, and that being set aside, in the month of March, Washington's 10-3-1, and the Lightning are 10-2. So both teams have played pretty darn well this month. Standings overall, Washington's number 4, and Tampa's number 1. So Washington, for me, is the best team in their division. They're not number 1 in their division by accident, and they've played very well this year. On the road, they're 23-14-2. At home, Tampa's an insane 32-6-2. They are standing 3 wins away from tying the Detroit Red Wings record of 62, 4 games away from winning it with 63. They only have 5 games left. I can't see them winning 4 out of 5. That I just don't see it because there has to be some kind of a letdown that since they haven't been playing games that mean anything to them in the standings for a while. Anyways, standings overall being as they are, a home and road record being as they are. If you look at the cup odds, Washington's tied for ninth with Toronto. Really? And Tampa's number one. So, yeah, if you want to make a bet on Washington, you have the same odds as you do with Toronto. It's kind of weird. Goals leaders. Ovechkin, of course, leads with 49 for the Capitals. Your assist leader is Carlson with 54. Points, Ovechkin leads there with 86. Plus minus, Kempny leads at a plus 24. Penalty minutes, Wilson has 119. Power play goals, Ovechkin has 17. Game-winning goals, Connolly and Ovechkin both have 5. Your shots leaders, Ovechkin with 317. On the Tampa side of things, it gets crazy. Stamkos has 41 goals. The guy whose scoring had left him the first 15 games of the season, it returned. Assist leaders, Kucherov with 83. He also leads the team in points with 121. Plus minus leaders, McDonough with plus 38. Penalty minutes, Paquette leads there with 80. Power play goals, Point has 20. That's insane. Game-winning goals, Kucherov with 7. Shots, Kucherov has 237 of those. So they can hurt you in so many ways. This is a big team. They're bruising. They can play that style if they need. There really isn't a way that Tampa can't beat you, including with their goaltending. I would expect that in a matchup like this that it's Holtby and Vasilevsky again. And so far, Tampa has come out the better team in this matchup. They've won both meetings. And again, it feels like Tampa's aware we're going to have to go through Washington, and they get up for those games. I expect Tampa to be up for this one tomorrow. After that, we may see them pull back a bit, maybe rest a couple of guys as we're in the last week before the playoffs. That does get dangerous, though. You don't want to get lazy going into the playoffs or have your players go cold. So we'll see what they do. Next up, St. Louis. Coming off of a tough loss against the Rangers. Tomorrow night they go in and they play the New Jersey Devils, which is advantageous to them. And yet the Devils at home are much better than they are on the road. 7-5-2 is the record for the Blues in the month of March. So for the entire month of March, it's been good. Could be better. Whereas New Jersey can't be much worse. They're 4-8-1. But if you're on the tank squad for New Jersey, you're a happy camper right now. Standings overall, St. Louis is 13th, whereas New Jersey is 29th. On the road, they're 20-13-6 are those Blues, and at home, the New Jersey Devils are 19-14-6. Stanley Cup odds, St. Louis is tied for 9th with Washington and Toronto. So basically, instead of saying, well, these are the odds, it's just hedge your bets. It's almost like because of last year with Vegas and how they almost had to pay out a lot of money if Vegas had won a Stanley Cup. They just hedged their bets right from the start this year. Pretty much literally. Now, on the St. Louis side of things, their goals leader is Tarasenko with 30. He's had a very good season after a slow start. Assist leader is O'Reilly with 45, and your points leader is O'Reilly with 72. Penalty or plus minus, I'm getting ahead of myself, is O'Reilly with plus 22. Edmondson leads the team in penalty minutes with 68. Tarasenko, 11 power play goals. Game-winning goals, 3 players have 5. Shots, Tarasenko leads there with 253. Goals, Palmieri, 27. Assists, Hischier with 28. Points, Palmieri with 50. Let's be honest, if Taylor Hall had played 20 more games, he still leads in all of these categories. Plus minus leaders, Hischier with a plus 2. Penalty minutes leader is Wood with 72. Actually, Palmieri wouldn't have had the lead in goals. Hall would not have had the lead from Palmieri in goals. He only had 11 at the time he was injured. But yeah, power play goals is Palmieri with 11. Game-winning goals, 3 players have 3. Your shots leaders, Palmieri with 222. So call Palmieri with a good year. It started off fantastic. He's gone through his challenges since then, but still a pretty solid season all around. And there are some things to like about New Jersey going forward. I don't know that they necessarily return to the playoffs next year, but it can't be as miserable as this year. And for St. Louis, don't fall into the trap again. You fell into the trap with the Rangers. Of course, that being said, and St. Louis fans are going to say, I'm yelling it at their computers right now, it was Georgiev. We played great. We should have won. Fine. Come out and win tomorrow night against New Jersey. No harm, no foul. And maybe you make up some ground against Nashville and Winnipeg as well. And that narrative of there being 3 teams in the race for first in the division is still a thing. That being said, moving along. Anaheim. Yes, the Ducks. Coming off of being massacred by Calgary, can they do the opposite of what other teams have done? Lately, if a team goes in and they beat Calgary, they struggle to beat the Oilers. In some cases, they lose to the Oilers, embarrassingly, and in some cases, it takes still a shootout to beat the Oilers. So, can the Ducks reverse that trend? By reversing it, I mean they get killed in Edmonton. Can they now go into, or they get killed in Calgary, and can they go into Edmonton and come out with a really good result? We'll see, right? In the month of March, they're 8-6-1 are those Ducks, whereas the Oilers are 7-4-2. Not a bad record at all, but when you're trying to catch teams and you're so far back, you have to be better than 7-4-2. It's a heartless business, this hockey thing. Standings overall, yeah, Anaheim's 25th and Edmonton's 23rd. So that's not beneficial to their odds of making the playoffs. That being said, Edmonton's still technically alive. They stand 22nd in cup odds. Vancouver was 23rd. So Edmonton is the next team that gets eliminated officially, but it hasn't happened yet. So if you want to put money on Edmonton, you can. Goals leader, Silverberg, 23 for the Ducks. Assist leader is Getzlaf with 34. He also leads the team in points with 47. Plus minus, Troy Terry leads there with a plus 8. Penalty minutes, Ritchie and Manson both have 62. Power play goals, Henrique has 8. Game-winning goals, Silverberg has 4. Shots, Raquel has 181. On the Oilers side of things, well, there's two guys who dominate this show, right? Draisaitl with 47 goals. McDavid with 74 assists, and also with 114 points. So if over the last week he can put up, say, 10 points, he could pass Cooch. It can happen. And then Oiler fans lose their minds because he's not going to win the Hart, but the conversation will be made. The argument will be made. You'll feel better when he wins the Ted Lindsay Award. You will, promise. Plus minus, Matt Benning with plus 13. Penalty minutes, Cassian with 100. Power play goals, Draisaitl with 16. Game-winning goals, McDavid with 9. And McDavid also leads with shots, 227. I'm surprised McDavid doesn't have every game-winning goal this team's had, split with Draisaitl. So it's just Draisaitl and McDavid, and that's it. So a game between two teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. The interesting thing in this, of course, is the McDavid-Draisaitl storyline. Two guys with over 100 points. Amazing seasons for both, and the team's not going to make the playoffs. A fantastically drafted team when you look at the top prospects, but they haven't been able to round that team out with the right prospects behind them and with the right pieces to make them a winning team on a regular basis. So be a lot of finger pointing, I would think, at the end of the year. They'll get pointed at Chiarelli for a while, but at some point they'll get pointed somewhere else because Chiarelli, once he's been gone for a while and they made some new decisions, should they remain in this position, it won't take long for people to say, hey, there's something else wrong. It's not just Chiarelli that was causing this. We have another problem. So for Edmonton, they really need to turn this around next year. If you're looking at a team that's missed the playoffs this year that has to make it next year, Edmonton's in that category. Next up, last game, I promise. This is it. I want to go to bed as much as anybody. Chicago, in against the LA Kings. For the Hawks, they're 7-5-1 this month. For the Kings, they're 5-7-1 this month. So it's a mirror record, but for Chicago, there has to be some tremendous disappointment right now. Those back-to-back games with Colorado have to feel kind of gutting. And we'll see where they go from here. Overall standings are 22nd in the NHL. Their odds of making the playoffs are really slim to none right now. On the LA side, they're 30th in the NHL. On the road, Chicago's 17-19-3 at home. LA's 15-20-3. The Stanley Cup odds, Chicago's still there. They're 20th. Their goals leader is Patrick Kane, 41. Assists, Patrick Kane, 63. Which means your points leader, that's right, it's Patrick Kane with 104. The 100-point season we're not talking about. Once Marchand hits 100 points, we can also talk about his 100-point season we weren't talking about. Plus minus, Connor Murphy leads there with a plus 15. Duncan Keith has 68 penalty minutes to lead in that category. DeBrincat has 13 power play goals. What an amazing season for him. He's at 40 goals now. And Patrick Kane leads the team in game-winning goals with 7. Shots, Patrick Kane, 312. And if you want to get into a conversation about teams that are missing the playoffs and guys who if you would allow a Hart consideration to a guy who's on a non-playoff team, Patrick Kane for me is just as high up on that list as McDavid. Without this season for Kane, they're nowhere near where they are right now. On the LA side of things, their goals leaders Kopitar and Brown both have 21. The assist leader is Doughty with 36. Your points leader is also Kopitar with 56. Plus minus, Austin Wagner has a +2. Penalty minutes, Kyle Clifford with 67. Not as many penalty minutes as you might expect with Clifford. Power play goals, Brown with 9. Game-winning goals, there's 3 players with 3 of them. And your shots leader is Tyler Toffoli with 217. Interesting and of note is that the LA Kings have won both meetings they've had with the Hawks. This will be the third and final meeting this year, and it won't determine much of anything. And isn't it interesting that these teams are meeting with a week to go? And as recently as, 4 years ago, this would have been considered a key matchup between two teams who could very well meet in the conference final. And now it's two teams that aren't going to go to the playoffs. So, hockey is cyclical. And right now these teams are, LA feels like they're at the bottom of their cycle. Chicago treading water, and it feels like with some of their young players, they could bounce right back into this as soon as next year. They have some decisions to make as well, and we'll see what ends up happening there. But, yeah, so it should be an excellent day for hockey tomorrow. Every day is an excellent day for hockey. We are a week away from the end of it for the regular season, and 15 fan bases going, yeah, I don't like hockey anyways. I'm done. I'm going to go watch baseball. They watch baseball for half an hour, and then they come back to the channel and they say, Shannon, I watched baseball for half an hour. Can you just do a video on my team's Stanley Cup run 20 years ago? I need to feel the warm fuzzies. It'd be nice to have that. So that's where my channel comes in handy as a way to help people who are dealing with anxiety that they don't get to watch their team again until October. I am more than willing to provide content on said teams until October. So there you go. You're all set for tomorrow's games, 12 of them in all. Let me know your thoughts, your picks, that kind of thing. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. And if you made it through all 42 minutes, again, thank you guys so much. Your dedication is not unnoticed. YouTube does measure watch time, retention, audience retention, and things like that. So for those of you that watch the whole video all the way through, it is appreciated. It does mean that your metrics get somewhat better for your channel. I don't know how it affects anything really, but I know that's something that's tracked on their part. So thank you guys so much for that. And on that note, I'm going to stop this, upload it, and then try to get some shut-eye. I will also link in the description below this a review to a movie that I watched, which is just so bad. It's just awful. It's so awful that I had to do a review while I was doing the boards for this. So there you go. Just a cheap plug for my other channel. But that's it for me for tonight. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.